It's Adam here for PC Monitors, and today I'm going to be taking a look at the OSD on-screen display menu system of the Samsung S24E390HL. The OSD is controlled by a jog button or joystick, which is just behind the monitor here. And if you twiddle that to the left, right, up or down without pressing it in, then you get a little quick menu here, which shows that if you then twiddle it up or down, you can adjust brightness, contrast or sharpness very easily. If you then twiddle it left or right, you can access the volume. And this monitor doesn't have integrated speakers, but it does have a 3.5mm headphone jack, so that's the volume you're controlling with that. And it also shows you the status of the iSaver mode, which I'll come on to in a little bit. If you press the joystick in, you get this little quick menu. The top option there is the menu itself, the main menu, which I'll come on to. To the left, there's source. Down is power off, so it is a two-step process to actually turn the power off to the monitor. There's not a dedicated power button. That's, it's a minor inconvenience. It's not really the end of the world. It's just how they've done it. And if you go to the right, there is iSaver mode, which is a new feature of the monitor. This is basically a low blue light setting, which is explored in the review. It reduces the screen brightness very, significantly over the default setting. I mean, it depends what setting you use. I think it's probably around 100 candle hours per meter squared, so in a bright room like that, it's pretty dim. It also hugely reduces the contrast, which is supposed to make the image more relaxing on the eyes, because the eyes don't have to work as hard, sort of adapting to different light levels coming from the monitor. And it also reduces the output of blue light. It basically reduces the blue color channel significantly. So is it a very relaxing mode to use? I do like it. It's a nice feature, but as I mentioned in the review, there are some alternatives you might want to consider if you want to retain the full contrast of the monitor and also control over brightness levels. So you can see that I've got the iSaver mode enabled, and it's got this little, that icon now becomes yellow. Not sure how clear that is on the video, but it is yellow rather than white. And on this quick menu it says iSaver mode on. I mean, you can tell by just looking at the image when iSaver mode's on anyway, but it likes to remind you. So now we look at the main menu. The main menu is split into 5 different sections. First of all, there's picture, and that allows you to change things such as the brightness, contrast and sharpness of the monitor. There's also a little dialog box to the right, which tells you, as you're going through all of the settings, what exactly it does, which is quite useful. There's the iSaver mode, which I've already talked about. You can just enable or disable that. There's a game mode, which is explored in the review, and what that does is it basically hugely oversaturates colours and makes the monitor look very sharp. Too sharp, not sharp in a good way, overly sharp I should say. Some people like that kind of image, but I'd really recommend just playing with the settings yourself and keeping game mode off, but have a play with it anyway. And I should also mention there's an on and an always on setting. The always on setting will make sure that game mode is activated when you turn the monitor on, whereas the on setting, I believe, should only activate the game mode for this session of using the monitor, so to speak. So when the monitor goes on standby or you turn it off and then on again, the game mode will be deactivated. There are a couple of Magic Bright presets to choose from. There's a Magic Upscale mode, which it says enhances picture detail and vividness. What it actually does is increases the sharpness of the image, sort of artificially, again a bit like the game mode. It makes it overly sharp. Mode 1 is quite a weak effect, mode 2 is more significant, but this sort of thing might be useful if you're viewing lower resolution content or you're running the monitor at a non-native resolution, because that tends to soften the image itself, so you can kind of try and counteract that a bit. There's an image size option, which says there it's only got 2 options, wide and auto. and if you're displaying a non-native resolution with a different aspect ratio, this just controls how that's displayed. There's an HDMI black level option, which is explored in the review in the calibration section. And another thing looked at on the review is the response time setting, which I'd recommend you leave to the faster, which is the default setting. It's definitely the best setting on this monitor. There are also a couple of grayed out things there, H position, V position, coarse and fine, and they're related to little adjustments you can make with the analog connection, VGA, of the monitor. But because I'm using HDMI, a digital connection, there's no need to adjust these, it's all done automatically, so you can't access them. Next there's the colour menu, that allows you to adjust the red, green and blue colour channels to your desired values. There's a colour tone option, and it has a couple of different options there. The most useful, I feel, other than the custom one, is warm 2, because this is like essentially a pretty effective low blue light setting, and unlike the iSaver mode, it doesn't reduce the contrast of the monitor anywhere near as significantly, and you can control the brightness manually. Some users would find this just as comfortable and relaxing for evening viewing, that kind of thing, but as I said, I do still quite like the iSaver mode. It's not, I don't find it any more relaxing than just using the warm 2 setting, but definitely nice to see that mode there anyway. There's a gamma mode setting, 3 different modes here, and I just leave it on mode 1 because that's the best mode for this monitor, basically, and that's the default mode. Next there is menu settings, which allows you to adjust some basic settings for the OSD itself, such as where on the screen it's displayed, how long it's displayed before disappearing after the last button press. So I've got that set to 200 seconds, just so I can go through stuff without the menu disappearing on me. And you can enable or disable the transparency effect. Next, there's setup and reset, which allows you to reset all of the options in the menu system to the defaults. There is an Eco Saving Plus feature, and that has a few different settings, and what this does is it takes control of the monitor brightness. It doesn't do anything that you can't achieve yourself by manually adjusting the brightness of the monitor, but it just basically has various different preset levels for the backlight brightness. So what Auto does is that reduces the power consumption of the monitor by 10% over whatever brightness level you've got set before activating the mode. I hope that makes sense. It's explained a bit better in the user guide, the manual for the monitor. So that just gives you a very slight reduction in brightness and power consumption. The low mode will reduce the power consumption by 25% compared to the default mode, default brightness, which is 100 full brightness. So that's actually quite bright, brighter than I'd like my screen anyway. And there's high, which is a lot dimmer, which it decreases the power consumption by 50%. There's an off timer, and what that does, that's actually set to 4 hours and it's on by default. And what happens is, when this time elapses and you haven't pressed a button on the monitor, so you haven't used the joystick, it'll basically give you this little message saying that the monitor is going to turn off, and then you can press any button, you can twiddle the joystick, and it'll go off for another. The message will disappear for another 4 hours or whatever you've set this to. So whereas if you don't press the joystick, it'll turn the monitor onto standby. So it's just another little power saving feature, and it is set by 4 hours by default, so you'll probably want to turn that off unless you want to use it. I find it a little bit annoying, and I know to turn my monitor off myself when I'm not using it, because I'm good like that. There is a PC AV mode setting, and you'd want to use the AV mode for some older games consoles. I'm not a big console person. I'm not sure if this is correct, but I think that modern consoles are pretty much like, well, they're pretty much like PCs really, so just leave that on PC mode and they should work fine. And there are a few more modes, options you can set. You can just change the sort of behaviour of the joystick as you scroll through the settings. You can manually select the image source or let the monitor choose it automatically. And you can change the power LED. There's a little LED here. It's you can see that little square, little rectangle there. The camera will focus on it. And that's a little blue light. It's actually off when the monitor's on by default, and it only comes on when the monitor's in standby. But if you like that to come on when the monitor's on, you can set that to working instead of standby, and it'll be on when the monitor is on, and off when it's off, or off when it's on standby. Finally, there's an information section which just gives you some basic information about the monitor, such as the serial number, how you've connected it, and the refresh rate, plus the optimal mode, which is basically the default resolution and refresh rate. As I explore in the review, you can overclock this monitor or run it at a higher refresh rate at the native resolution, which is what I'm doing here. So that's all there is to it. That was the OSD on-screen display menu system of the Samsung S24E390HL. Be sure to check out the full review on PCmonitors.info.